So, that was a success. There was one unfortunate incident during the week. Y.J. Adams, the director of the sewer district, took a branch to the face, and it actually was pretty bad. He had a big wound over his eye and a scratch on his face. It was lucky he didn't get anything worse than just a scratch, but otherwise it was all good. So, another successful year of picking up leaves.
Hope that this sewer district has good insurance.
Yeah, well, and a good safety plan. That's what I asked.
We have the mayor and city council reports of finance committee.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee met tonight. What else I can read? So we went over the monthly report year-to-date, the end of October. Sales tax is currently up 16% over the same period last year. We are expecting, at this point, we're 220% of budgeted year-to-date for permitting revenue. I knew we were ahead, but that's even farther ahead than I had even imagined. Expenses are expected to end the year at about 96 to 97% of budget, so about 3 to 4% under budget expected for the year on expenses. Large projects, you'll see large carryover from 2016-17 for the Liberty Lake Road project. We received a packet, and other council members will be getting copies as well, with projected ending expenses for 2016. So in your budget binder, you've got all the actuals, and then through 15, the budget for 16, and the budget for 17. But what RJ's providing us are the projected endings for the 16. Helps a little bit in the analysis. We talked a little bit about the I-1433 initiative that passed. This was the increase to minimum wage and addition of sick leave. I was happy to hear that our expected impact the first year is only around $5,000. Pleasantly surprised, to say the least, that it was as small as it was. And with regards to sick leave, because of the way we do our hours, it should have little financial impact on the city. So far, we've got 30 MBQs in for the budget. There'll be more coming this weekend. So if you haven't had a chance to read through the responses, those should be in your email. And lastly, with the audit, we're still waiting on an exit interview date.
Okay. Good. So we're going to have, at this time, before we go to Kate, we're going to go to Don.
Right, and first I wanted to ask in the audience, is anyone from Brothers Office Pizza here? I invited them, but, okay. So we're going to have GSI's presentation.
Okay, they may sure. Todd Mielke, former commissioner, now CEO of Greater Spokane Incorporated, and welcome to Overland.
Well, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening. There are handouts in front of all of you, and I was just going to go through some slides rather quickly. I know that I took over my post as the CEO of Greater Spokane Incorporated on February 1st. I've seen a lot of the mayor and their city administrator, and have not had a chance to interface with a lot of you, so I greatly appreciate this opportunity to come out and visit with you. So before I guess I can take a look at what the organization is today, I want to give you a brief history about what our organization has been in the past. First of all, we were created in 1898 as a Chamber of Commerce back then. Some of the committees are the same committees that you see today. Education Committee, membership, finance, government affairs, those kinds of things. What was interesting though is back then, the Spokane Chamber of Commerce was the largest business organization in Eastern Washington. So a lot of times if there was anything significant happening on the east side of the Cascades, as a business organization, a lot of times it was brought through this organization. So for example, the Columbia River Irrigation Project, the very first federal allocation through Congress was $100,000 to do land surveying, and that was done through the Spokane Chamber of Commerce. Other major projects that you've seen in the history, in the 1940s, it was the business community in Spokane that came together and purchased all the land where Fairchild Air Force Base is today. They donated it. Back then, it was the Army Air Corps prior to the Air Force being created, but that's the origin of Fairchild Air Force Base, was the business community. More recently, Spokane International Airport, and then you see the higher education center, the River Point campus in downtown Spokane. More recently, the medical school being located in Spokane and the growth of that. And I'll get back to you on The other thing is a significant thing happened in 2007. The traditional Chamber of Commerce focuses on businesses that already exist in your community today and on their prosperity. An economic development organization focuses on recruiting. In 2007, the Spokane Area Chamber of Commerce merged with the Spokane Area Economic Development Council to create Greater Spokane Incorporated. When people say, are you a chamber or are you an EDC? We're a hybrid, and we're both. And so we're a business development organization. We focus on not only the businesses that exist today, but those that may come to our community later. And we're not the first one to do this. We're not the last. If you look at chambers across the country, most of them are a hybrid of some kind. It might be a chamber and a convention visitors bureau. It might be a chamber and a workforce group. But like I say, very rarely do you see just a pure chamber, EDC, convention visitors bureau as standalones. Some of the misnomers is some people say, oh, you're the downtown chamber or you're the city of Spokane chamber. We're a regional chamber. We always have been since 1898. Other things that I do want to point out is we are the largest business development organization in the area. And one of the things that we want to focus on is we want to make sure that we're creating an environment where businesses can succeed, they can compete, and they can grow. And those three words are important. They mean a lot. We have about 1,200 members, a little over 1,200 members, and those 1,200 members employ roughly 100,000 people in this community. There are about 235,000 people in the workforce. 100,000 of those work for employers that we see. Say one of the other misnomers, and I grew up in this community, so I've always heard that it's the downtown chamber and it's the chamber of big business. The other thing I always heard was it's the big business. 75% of our members have 50 or fewer employees. There is a cupcake place at Washington, and I think it's Washington and First, and they have 32 employees. They have both a front of the house bakery and a back of the house bakery in that business, and they're really typical for the types of businesses that we have in this community. If you take a look at our mission, and this was updated late last fall, and really the mission statement I think is one that's important, is really transformative business and community initiatives to build a robust economy. And so sometimes we get accused of thinking big, and yeah, we do think big. I mean, the medical school is a good example. We had 20 students five years ago, 20 first-year medical students in Spokane, and our goal was to add a second year, a third year, and a fourth year, and double the number to go from 20 to 40 students. So in 5 years, what we've done as a community is we've been able to go and the WWAMI program, the joint program between the University of Washington and Gonzaga, started a class of 60 students this last August. By next year, they want to start a class of 80 students. Washington State University started its own medical school. They have provisional accreditation that was granted here just a few weeks ago, which means they can now recruit for their first class of 60 students next year. And on day one, they had 275 applicants. The first day they went live with their website. So what this means is we start, if the legislature says yes on the funding, we start 140 medical students in Spokane. The medical school at the University of Washington in Seattle produces 100. So that's where we've come as a community in just 5 years. Other things, when people say, well, how do I understand what the goals are of GSI, and are they aligned with what we're trying to accomplish? And it's a discussion I have with a lot of elected officials. But one of the things that we find asked most often from businesses is, how do I find employees to fill vacancies? So certainly, and when businesses are looking at our area, I say, can I find employees? Can I find a highly skilled workforce? Number one question. We want to grow average household income. We want to support startup businesses, people who have an idea to start a business and don't know how to get started. We want to retain and expand existing businesses. I think in the past, too much effort has been focused on recruiting businesses. Most job growth and most of the basis of our economy is really supporting the businesses that are here and putting them in a position where they can expand. And we want to be attractive. Frankly, if you're attractive to the businesses that are already here, you're going to be attractive to businesses that may want to be here. And the last thing, and it's certainly not the least, is all of you as elected officials want to make sure that you can provide services that your constituents demand. Part of the goals of economic development is to make sure that it generates enough commerce, that it generates revenue for you to be able to provide those services. And I certainly am well aware of the challenges in Washington State with regard to sustainable funding in local governments. We went through, I mentioned that we updated our strategic, our mission statement, mission, vision, values late last fall. Since I've been at GSI in February, we updated our strategic plan and really wanted to step back and take a look at how do we look at economic development and how do we focus on it. And so what we said is for us to be successful, there's foundational strategies and then there are some business development strategies. Those foundational ones are if we're going to have a robust economy in our region, 3 things probably need to be present. Number 1, you need to have a workforce to fill the jobs. And like I say, some businesses actually follow the workforce. One of the biggest questions asked right now is where are the millennials? As you look at the aging baby boomers, and then the Gen Xers, we're a small group, and then you have the millennials that are just kind of getting into the workforce. This region is growing faster than the national average in the 18 to 35 age group, which is phenomenal when it comes to where businesses want to be on a long-term basis. Business climate, also foundational. Businesses can't be successful if you've got a business climate that doesn't allow them to be. And then infrastructure. Do we have the infrastructure to support that? And certainly we all recognize when we start to hit the limits of that infrastructure. The strategies for business development are really based in the basic cycles of business development. Are you in the startup phase? Are you in the expansion? Are you in retention? We had McKay Industries in this community that was going gangbusters, but more than 70% of their customer base, their gross revenues was in one customer. They lost one customer, and they had to totally reinvent themselves as a manufacturer in this area. So retention is important. We never know when one of the companies that we take for granted is at risk. And then recruitment, the one that I say gets all the attention. So this slide I think is important because as I show it to people, I will tell you time and time again when we talk about economic development, a lot of people focus just on the recruitment box, and I would say there's 7 boxes in play if we're going to be successful. The greater Spokane 7 is really the strategic plan update, and from that we'll be going through and develop our work plan. What are the specific tactics to implement it? I mentioned the 3 foundational ones. What are we trying to do with regard to workforce? I don't need to read it for you, it's there. But certainly what we're looking at is what does the pipeline of workers look like. And so not only what we're realizing is if you take a look at when people say, what does your workforce look like? What I've learned is that's code for how many people in your workforce have a 2-year certificate or have a certificate or higher in your workforce. The national average is about 40%. We are a tick above that as a region. We're about 40.4%. Our goal is to move education attainment, working adult education attainment to 60%, have a certificate or more, post-secondary certificate or more. But we're also looking at the pipeline that goes earlier and earlier. We've got grade school kids being exposed to robotics and STEM, which is just amazing. They sit down and program in front of you and blip it right out. But it's also exposing them to high demand, high growth careers that we anticipate 10 years out that they can start thinking about early. The advocate part, we've always focused primarily at the federal and state level. More and more what we see is we also have to pay attention at the local level. I just got to say, I love coming out here because you're not one of the local levels I have to worry about on business climate issues. But it is becoming, we're seeing more and more business regulations being handled at the local level, oftentimes creating inconsistencies with those businesses that operate across jurisdictional lines. With regard to infrastructure, it's always about how we identify, how we prioritize, how we fund infrastructure. That's a challenge everywhere, but that's certainly one that we try to collaborate with everyone in the region to figure out what those needs are. I know as a community, we've been talking about that next off-ramp, that interchange just down the road as one of those necessary infrastructure projects. With regard to the different phases, certainly we want to make sure if you have an idea to start a business, somehow you know how to get started and where to go. So we have a very robust startup effort in this community on being able to connect people to the resources that are necessary to do that. With regard to retention, again, the issue is you never know when businesses are in trouble. We conduct about 400 to 500 interviews a year with businesses, and we sit down and say, how's it going? Anything that you're being challenged with right now, what does growth look like to you? You know, are there opportunities to do that? For some, it may be international trade. For others, it might be they have a product and they can bid on government contracts, but they don't know how to get started on doing that. So how do we grow their customer base to be able to do that? But again, one of the questions that we ask in every one of those interviews is, what do you see as the biggest threat to your success in the region? And then it's open-ended. We get lots of interesting responses based on that question, which takes us back to the public policy piece. Other things, when we take a look at expansion, in the last slide we show Acrofab, that was a project that we worked with the mayor and your staff on that one. When we talk about expanding, there's been a lot of stuff going on in this community, and I will say that this end of Spokane County is attractive. So with regard to expansion, I define this as businesses that are already here that are looking to, like I say, grow their operation. And so we've had a number, Liberty Mutual, we've had Providence, the Appleway building, and then a number of your properties that are currently on the market are also featured in the Advantage Spokane magazine that site selectors take a look at for this community. And then with regard to recruitment, most recently the Comcast Center is the most recent example of a recruitment. I will just say we get requests for information, RFIs as we call them, and they usually come with a non-disclosure. You get a very brief profile of what they look like. And to tell you kind of what kind of effort goes into that. So we had one, it was an aerospace company. It was 300 jobs. It's a company that's already in existence in other parts of the nation, and they're looking at this region. But 300 jobs, 100 of which would be engineers. The other 200, they're looking for high-skilled millennials as their ideal workforce. And they said, once you know the name of our company, we think everybody will want to come to work for us. We're cutting edge kind of deal. It's like, all right. We knew it's aerospace, but they didn't have to be at the airport. They made that clear. So it's not, to me, that's not a fly-in, fly-out product. But they did say they needed 65-foot ceiling height, which means overhead crane. So that request for information, we were competing with 16 states. On the very first meeting, they said, we showed them around the community, and they said, we'd like to go ahead and execute a non-disclosure with you right now. And we're still working to eliminate other locations. So we did that. They sent us a questionnaire, and the questionnaire was 48 questions. The packet that we sent, and you roughly got 10 days to do it, took 200 hours of staff time to put together. It is this thick, and it's everything. They want to know where every piece of infrastructure in the region is. They want to know everything about your workforce in the area, a whole list of sites. But that's one request. We've got 20 of those on our desk right now. Trying to go through those. Almost to the end. Again, the issue of recruitment is if we do a really good job for businesses that already exist here, the outfall of that is we become very attractive for businesses that maybe decide that the cost of doing business in the Puget Sound core is maybe a little bit high, and they're looking for an alternative location. So like I say, what we do is we try to be very thoughtful about how we approach that. Some of our key community initiatives going forward, and this is really about evaluating our region's assets and how we move forward. One of the things is we're a regional hub for healthcare. We have been for a long time, largest healthcare center between Seattle and Minneapolis. And so part of what we see is not only are we expecting large shortages in providers, so how do we train more of them? And part of that training is through a medical school. And I've already touched on that. And out of that medical school comes research and more companies. That's where you get the Fred Hutch's and those kinds of things. The other one is Education Attainment Initiative. I already mentioned that we're trying to make sure that we stay at the top of our game. The one that probably needs more focus on that we're working on right now is aerospace and advanced manufacturing. I'm certainly spending a lot of time with Kaiser to make sure they remain a strong force in this community. Some of us recognize that when Kaiser means shut down, that was a little more than 800 jobs in this community. And some would say that jobs available to our middle class have never really kind of regained where they were prior to that closure. And then again, the issue of infrastructure, and then with regard to the military presence here, Fairchild is the largest single-site employer in all of Eastern Washington. It has 6,000 employees, another 5,000 dependents, and another 18,000 retirees in this area. So very significant impact. And with that, that's my presentation. I would be more than happy to answer any questions with regard to what we do as a business development organization and how we partner with Liberty Lake.
If you can, walk me through the process a little bit. I'm a new business owner in Liberty Lake. How do you hear about me, and what's your outreach to me?
You bet. So part of it is what we're doing is we take a look at the Department of Revenue data of businesses that are registering in the state. So assuming that it is above the table, that's probably how we find out about you. We are my sales team is reaching out through those avenues and trying to identify you to determine whether you have an interest in becoming one of the investors of GSI. Other things that once we identify you and are able to meet with you, the next steps that I would say is to assess what your needs are and what your interests are. One of the things that we find with small business groups, and this goes back to the expansion piece, is a lot of business people in this community started a business, they've done pretty well, but they haven't had a lot of formal training in business. So we have a whole series of I would say, I don't want to say continuing ed, professional development programs about how to make you the most successful owner and manager of your business. Most recently, in the last few weeks, we've spent a lot of time making sure that businesses are aware of the new federal labor regulations coming December 1st to make sure you're not out of compliance. We've been putting on seminars with regard to the safe and sick leave, because for a long time we didn't know if that would impact businesses outside the city limits of Spokane, and determining when that takes effect. So that's a big piece of it, is like I say, trying to meet your immediate needs. Other businesses want to be involved for networking purposes, but it all starts, you're right, with us doing our best to try to identify when you become open, when you open your doors, but also trying to encourage you to check us out as well. This morning we had an economic forecast that we put on every year. It was the 19th annual one. We have John Mitchell, who is the former chief economist for U.S. Bank, is one of the speakers. He talks about everything going on in trends nationally. We have Grant Forsythe, the economist for Avista, that talks about what's going on in the region, and then answered questions. And so hopefully that helps you as a business person to understand what's going on with demographics in this community, with what the outlook is for the next probably 24 months in the economy, and how to plan for that as a business.
We recently had a meeting on Sunday as a city council for our 2017 priorities. One of the big topics of conversation was revolving around business support, recruitment, things to that effect. What do you see cities can do, like ourselves, to help support our local businesses? And one of the questions that has come up year after year is, I'll give you an example, is our sign codes and restrictions that are in place, and how these decisions affect local businesses.
Absolutely. So I would say as local government, there's a few things that you could do to support your local businesses. First and foremost, have a predictable business environment. I spend a lot of time dealing with things in another jurisdiction, and I will tell you, based on the activity that's going on in that jurisdiction, there are a lot of businesses focused outside that jurisdiction, and they're looking at Liberty Lake, and they're looking at Spokane Valley, and they're looking at Airway Heights. So you have businesses that went into the Great Recession, they struggled to stay afloat, they repositioned themselves, they paid off debt, they built up reserves, and now they're saying, finally, I think I'm in a point where I can start to think about expansion, but I'm not sure I want to stay at my current location. So we have a lot of people that are looking throughout the region. So what does that mean when they come looking your direction? They want to make sure that they think the regulatory climate is predictable. Do they believe that they can be profitable in your community? That's first and foremost. Are they going to be held to a different standard in your jurisdiction than anywhere else, especially for those businesses that that operate in multiple jurisdictions, because if they have to do a different set of books in every jurisdiction, it's a nightmare. The second thing I would say is the notion of infrastructure, and can they find a location that works for them? And with that location is are there local business fees? Some are expected, some can be a surprise. So not only is that, but also the regulations is what is the signage? Location, location, location if you're in the retail business. So are they going to be hidden away, or are they going to be able to get the exposure they need to be successful? Like I say, infrastructure and infrastructure rates are important. And then they start taking a look at, so once, and I will tell you, every business I've sat down with, the first thing they say is before they make any business decision on where to locate, they sit down with their accountant and they do a comparison. And so if they're down to 3 communities, they say, run my books if I was in community 1, 2, or 3, and tell me if there's a difference. It always starts with that discussion. And that's, I think, something that, as a former elected official, some of my elected colleagues don't look at. They go, if we make a really cool place, they'll always want to come here. It's like, no, it always starts as a financial consideration. Beyond that, what they say is, again, can I find a location? Are my regulations going to be predictable? Beyond that, then they start thinking about their employees. And that's not just can I find employees, it's can my employees find housing? Is it a safe community? How are the schools? Do they have to put all their kids in private schools, or how are the public schools? And those are all important considerations because they want their employees to be successful as well. So I'd say that's kind of the methodology that I've heard business after business explain to me is it starts with the financials. Second, can they locate their business there and get it up and running with employees and all that? And then is the community safe? Is the housing affordable? All those kinds of things. Can they get to and from work in less than a 1-hour commute each direction? Those kinds of things.
Any other questions for Todd?
Just one, please. Todd, you spoke earlier about having professional development programs for the companies. Do you offer anything along those lines for cities who want to improve their business status?
So, absolutely. So we have a number of our investors that are cities. Liberty Lake is one of them. You've been an amazing supporter. And so with your investment, you have every program available to you for professional development for your staff. So what that means is, and I know I see Albert Tripp, the city manager for Airway Heights, at a lot of different functions. And so we have a series called BizStreet, and it's really kind of that continuing education, professional development. We had one of the leadership professors from Gonzaga come in, and it was everything about how to build corporate culture. It was how to blend workforces. When you've got baby boomers and millennials who just see things very differently, how are you able to get them to work together? But he did that session is 90 minutes once a month. That one was a 5-part series. We had, I think, 45 positions. We sold out at 52. We squeezed them all in. And these were people that said, I want to come to all 5. They were all issued homework after every class where they had to go back to their organization and do surveys, do assessments, come back and really get an understanding, and then come back and say, this is what I found in my organization. It's like, okay, let's talk about it. And that was a leadership professor, and really it's an abbreviated course that he teaches in his management class at Gonzaga. So we have a number of those series in this BizStreet series that's targeting just that. And so all of your staff, you as council members, are welcome to participate in those because of your membership.
Thank you.
Any other comment?
Thanks for coming.
I just want to,
I did have
Sure.
a quick question.
Sure.
Always the slow one, guys. 2 questions. I'll just kind of lump them together and you can answer. So you mentioned the Valley Chamber. What is the difference between GSI and the Valley Chamber? Because I know that our city is, we have memberships with both organizations, I think that's the proper term. And then my second question is, and I got amazing information regarding our membership, and I saw the line items. One membership is $10,000 a year, and then there was another line item for another $10,000. I'm curious what that second $10,000 line item is. Maybe RJ can help with this.
Yeah,
So-
so we do 10,000 for membership, and then there's 10,000 for economic development, right, category.
So one of the things that we did is we changed our bylaws this year. And so in the past, the bylaws were such that the mayors of, and this goes back a little bit further, but the mayors of Liberty Lake, Cheney, and Airway Heights that all participated in GSI would rotate their position on our board each year. And in having, when I came on board and was going around talking to all of them, and said, you know, how's that work for all of you? And what I got back from all of them was, it doesn't. So the year that Mayor Peterson is on our board, he says, it's inferred that I'm also supposed to represent the interests of Cheney and Airway Heights, and I'm not in a position to do that. And just like the year that Mayor Trulove comes in Cheney, I don't know that he can represent the interests of Liberty Lake. So we went back and we changed our bylaws. And I'll just be real honest, I also have a council president in the city of Spokane, who I never know if he's going to be part of our investment group next year or not. And yet our bylaws said the mayor of Spokane will always be a member, will always sit on our board, whether they're a member or not. So we went back and said, we probably need to take a look at this. So what we said is change the bylaws. This happened in July. And it said, any municipality that is an investor at the chairman's circle or above, and that chairman's circle is 10,250, has a seat on our board every year. It doesn't rotate. And that way they have the ability to help shape our discussion about where we're going on setting priorities for the overall region. Because people say, I want a seat at the table, I want to represent my jurisdiction. So we did change that. So that's the first 10,250. The second 10,000, I think your staff is probably better equipped to handle, because I think part of that discussion happened before I came on board. But that is, if you see something that we're doing saying, I really like that, and I think that has a bearing on us as a specific community. So it might be infrastructure. It's, I really want to be part of the discussion on infrastructure. And so we were doing an assessment talking about how the state sets up different funding mechanisms for infrastructure. So we've got a 3-phase project that we've identified to identify, is there any dedicated funding source for infrastructure that, whether it's an interchange, whether it's an intersection, whether it's a transit center, you know, do we have money available for infrastructure? So we completed the first phase of that, taking a look at what's out there in the state of Washington. Port districts is one of those. Public development, I want to say PDA, but authority, public development authority, there's other options. They all have pros and cons and limits. And so I don't know if that second 10,000 was part of that effort. I believe it was, because there was a number of the jurisdictions that wanted to study, you know, to do a study of what dedicated economic development funding is available in the state. So that completed this last summer. And so that completed phase 1. Phase 2 then is to go back out and take a look at public opinions about how to move forward and identify sources of economic development funding. So we're going to be coming back out and asking jurisdictions to invest in phase 2. And then, like I said, I have some other stuff too. There's some folks that really want to get behind, like Spokane Teachers Credit Union is a huge supporter in education and education attainment in this community. So besides their base membership, they say, we not only want to make sure that adults have the ability to go back to college and finish their degree, they're one of the pilot employers in this community. There's 9 initial employers that they're participating in about how to create opportunities for their workforce to go back and finish their college degrees. But they're also extremely involved in how they expose students in the K-12 system to opportunities in STEM and things like that. So you probably see a $25,000, besides their membership, a $25,000 contribution to education, and some are higher. And then occasionally we have people that just say, I want to sponsor the, like today, this morning, was the economic forecast. And so Department of Commerce has signed up and said, I want to be a sponsor for the economic forecast, because I think it's an important tool for all businesses to be able to participate in and as they plan for their future.
And then, I know I kind of threw a lot of questions in there, but what's the big difference between GSI and Valley Chamber?
You bet.
Sorry about that.
So, no, that's fine. So, so the other chambers, and I mentioned we're kind of a hybrid. So the other chambers tend to focus on a specific geographical area. They all do great work. We partner with them frequently because occasionally we do have businesses that are focusing on one specific area and trying to get as much information from that area. So the downtown area has the Downtown Spokane Partnership. You have the West Plains Chamber, you have the Valley Chamber. And like I say, we work in conjunction with all of them. I would say the two primary differences are, number one, there is an ADO designation that's made, and that's Associate Development ADO organization. And that means that the State Department of Commerce has one organization designated in each of the 39 counties that as they seek economic development information, they go to that ADO. So if you have a company that goes to the Washington State Department of Commerce from out of state and says, I'm looking for information about possibly locating in Washington State, and I've got it narrowed down to these communities, Department of Commerce communicates with us, and then we reach out to either specific jurisdictions or the other chambers, or the other chambers, the airport, to be able to do that. So that's one thing that separates us, is our economic development activity that we do. And the second thing is workforce. There are very few chambers in the state of Washington, there are very few chambers in the nation that are as active as we are with regard to the education attainment piece.
Thank you.
Todd, I want to give a little brief history of your involvement. I mean, one of the things that we really, you see as one of the foundational things is advocacy. And Todd was a previous legislator, obviously to Olympia, County Commissioner, now CEO. Got a great background in the growth and held up the growth of the Spokane region. And so we're very fortunate to have him lead GSI. And to Jessica's last part of that question, the GSI is more of an economic development tool from my perspective, and the Valley Chamber is more transactional. So one is more to grow the business, and one is more to how does business succeed with the customers and working together as to grow the marketing. So those and Catherine, who's a great supporter of GSI, will be giving her presentation on the first
December 6th.
December 6th, right? So.
And you're right, Mayor, a typical chamber does focus a lot on networking opportunities for businesses to know of one another. We try to focus a little bit more, we still do that on a regional basis, but we try to focus a little bit more with regard to the professional development stuff and the economic development stuff. I will say that we spend a lot of time on business climate. I hope that I can rely on my background to try to figure out where we can be successful and how we can be successful. But I also know that I spent 12 years as a local elected official trying to understand, what we have the ability to accomplish and where it's really a tough road to hoe. And so I always look at this from the perspective of, as we partner with the jurisdictions, I recognize that you guys have a very distinct role that you play that we can't play. But we also do some stuff that you're not able to do as a public entity. And so hopefully the partnership and all of that is where we move forward. And again, working with your city manager on some of our economic development projects where we have non-disclosures. You guys understand open public meetings, you understand public documents. I signed a non-disclosure and somehow I still have to get information from your city and stuff. And so I'm able to utilize your staff to be able to do that without, like I said, if I came to you, the minute you and I share an email, that's public record and violates the NDA, and most businesses just say, I'm out of there. So we're no longer considered your community. So that's I think the partnership that we have the ability to do.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate your coming out. I appreciate our partnership with GSI.
Thank you for
You guys you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you for the opportunity. If you ever have any questions about anything we're doing, if you want to take a deeper dive in any of this, please let us know. We'll be back out in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, city manager's report, I'm gonna go through it fairly quickly. Just a follow-up to something I mentioned at our last council meeting, Center Valley School District does have an estimate for the fence along Boone Avenue. I just wanted to let you know it was $9,700. And so we're gonna partner with them and pay half of that. The fence will be a 5-foot most, with a mow strip in. And so that'll be something that we're working on. Moving to the sports complex, this is a activity that we've talked about before. This is looking at the area near the hub. And we partnered with the valley, the county, as well as Central Valley School District on paying for this report. Our contribution was $12,000. So the meeting with the elected officials, which you are all invited to attend, is November 30th from 4 to 6 at Center Place in the valley. And then there's a public meeting shortly thereafter from 6 to 8 p.m. So this is an opportunity for you to understand what the report shows, but also ask questions of the consultant. So I'm going to just keep moving. Master planning, I'm sorry,
real quick.
yes.
So do we have any idea who else is planning on attending? These meeting times are just so inconvenient for people who have day jobs.
Yes. I can look around the council and ask. I'm not sure how many of you are willing or able to attend on November 30th.
I'll be there.
You'll be there?
Conflict, but I'm trying to work it out.
Okay.
If I can't, I'll be there.
I will get a copy of the report, Councilmember Kaminskas, digitally and send it all to you. And I think the county's taking minutes of the meeting, so we'll make sure you have copies of those as well. I did ask for something a little bit later, but there was a number of jurisdictions that they were trying to coordinate with. So there is the public meeting from 6 to 8.
Try to get there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So it sounds like we have two. Mayor, you'll be there? No? And,
This is Dan, I'll be there.
okay, and Dan will be there.
I'm
Okay.
gonna try to be there as well.
Okay, well, thank you. I know that's a hard time. I believe it's a Thursday,
Wednesday.
it's a Wednesday night. I want to move on now to the master planning of city facilities. So this is something that I've been working on just the last 2 days based on feedback from Mayor Pro Tem and the mayor based on your retreat last Sunday. My understanding is that we're wanting to master plan and understand what the potential layout can be in our city. So, of our city facilities. This is our police department, our library, our city hall, our trailhead, golf course, etc. I did contact Gary Bernardo today, and as you know, he's a resident of Liberty Lake. He has a lot of background, has done work for the city before, and he expressed a strong interest in providing with us, assisting a master planning effort. Councilmember Brickner, you mentioned December 18th as a potential date. Gary thought that date was fine. He had a couple questions that I will share with you. One is, what do you think the scope of his services will be? What work product do you think is desired? And what time would you want to start on December 18th? So with that,
Question,
yes.
who invited him?
Who invited him?
Who said we needed Gary Bernardo?
Well, that's what she's asking, if we wanted.
I'm asking.
No, it says that somebody contacted him.
I
And
contacted-
now he has desires to know scope of service, product. His name wasn't even mentioned. So how did it go from not being mentioned to being invited?
I told Katie to contact Gary, because Gary had done some planning over here on Trailhead on 2 or 3 different occasions. He'd been involved in
The library and the police
library
department.
and community center in 2006 or 7, 8, whatever that time period was. He'd been involved in even in the second community center deal. Already had a great foundation of kind of what some of the problems were, what some of the opportunities were
Right.
that he had.
I see where you're going with it, Mayor, but number one, the council never requested that to be done, okay? Secondly, steps were taken beyond what we even knew was being taken. And actually, it was the council workshop. So it's just a little unnerving to have it sprung on you at a public meeting that things were done outside of what we actually agreed to at that time. Not that it's a bad deal, okay? It's just, boom, it's there, it's happening, and nobody understands why, okay? Or who invited him, or the thought process, and his scope of service, his product. Nobody's even thought about that, you know? Well, I don't know if they will or not, because I'm not sure he's really wanted.
Yeah, it was my
Okay.
impression we were having a brainstorm, basically a brainstorming session that
Right.
day.
So we go,
Brainstorm about what?
Mayor,
That's-
you were there.
I know, that's
Okay,
that's
so
why-
you know what we were talking
That's
about.
why I
You-
contacted Gary, because.
We appreciate you contacting him, we'll let you know if we want him there.
Okay.
And I haven't heard that we have at this point.
And I think that was kind of when Katie and I spoke, she just said that they were gonna potentially reach out to him as an option to bring tonight to see if that was something that we wanted or not. And if we decided as a council that we don't want him there, then so be it.
If I may.
This is Dan. I support the observations of Gary Bernardo. I value his experience and as the fact that he's a member of our community.
Let me see if I'm surprised.
If I may throw out there, I think for a master planning session, there's a process by which this goes by. I think it'd be, I respect Mr. Bernardo, and I've heard his opinions in the past. I like the idea of him. I think there's others in the community. I'm thinking of like a Mike Terrell or somebody along those lines, who also has a lot of master planning experience. I don't necessarily care who, as long as it's a qualified person, but I would urge that we get some sort of professional to help guide our brainstorm.
Let me say this about Gary Bernardo, okay? His family and my family are extremely close, okay? I mean, we're back and forth. So it's not about Gary Bernardo. It's about the fact that the council was taken in a different direction than what we thought we were going, okay? That is premature. That's the only thing wrong with it, all right? We were in a session where we wanted to bring it back and to look at that specifically and start planning on it, okay? Now we got somebody brought in, and it doesn't take a whole lot of thinking to know why, all right? That wants to take it and move it to, I'm sure, a different direction. So I'm saying at this point, we had a workshop. We asked that we could come back and meet together at a second workshop specifically for that function. And then at that point, let's see where the body wants to go.
So this might be a good two-stage approach then, where we meet,
Sounds like
we have a game plan set in place from a council's perspective, and then we seek out, if we so choose, that secondary.
I can support that. Agree.
Does that work, does that work, Roden?
That'll work fine, thank you.
And from my perspective with regards to who, again, nothing against Gary, nothing against Mike, we've all seen their work, they do great work, but is it worth getting a fresh set of eyes who's not familiar with what we've done in the past, and fresh ideas?
Maybe
I
we can
would
gather
appreciate
from a
that.
couple, maybe somebody that's been around in the town a little bit longer, and then maybe, you know, some fresh perspective on it as well, that might bring some new points to the table. Just an idea.
sounds like maybe that'd be a good topic for our workshop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether we decide to bring some of these great points.
So we'll have a primary workshop as a council and set up our thought process and then look at a secondary option if it's needed.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay, Kate.
Okay, so I'll keep moving along then. Just a quick update on the planning commission work. As you know, with the moratoriums that are in place and our design regulations that are under review right now, they've been putting in a lot of extra hours. They have a meeting scheduled tomorrow, and they have another meeting scheduled the end of the month and also in December. And I just wanted to let you know that they're working very hard. They're doing a lot of research on the different scenarios related to the M2 zone and also the I zone. And so that's all in a work in progress.
If I might just jump back to one of your questions on the master plan for the council. On the 18th, does noon work for everybody?
Works for me.
That's, it's on a Sunday. That's what time we met this last time.
Yes, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, thank you.
Of course.
Okay. And then on the back of my report, there's a 'Tis the Season outline of what's happening in Liberty Lake. We just wanted to get that in front of you so you can adjust your calendars. Santa will be here on Saturday, I believe. And we have a walk to Bethlehem that Bishop Jensen will be talking about on December 6th, sharing with you. It's a multi-faith activity in our community. And then we also have the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the roundabout is complete, as you know, at Mission and Moulter, and a flag went in, and I heard that it was very well received. That flag was donated by Greg Bacon, the contractor. I know it's not lit, but that could be a future Boy Scout project or a future city project. But we did put together a letter of appreciation to Bacon and Greg Bacon that we wanted to pass around to see if you were willing to sign it so that we could send it to him. Like I said, he is a local contractor. He actually was the contractor on Town Square as well, but he actually donated that flag and installed it.
If it's not lit, is it being taken down at night?
Yeah, it needs to be taken down, and our citizens speak of
it's
that
lit.
quickly.
It's lit down. There is a light at the very top. I saw it last
It's not
night.
working very well.
It's not, you're right.
But it is a step in the right direction, and maybe, I know Chris usually gets those questions quite quickly. This flag is doing this, and lighting, and here with, yeah.
I'm not following the comment.
But, so we get comments on, through different channels about, there was one, I guess the light went out or something at Pavilion Park during the summer, and someone was concerned, well, it's not being lit, and I guess somebody from the VA, I think, maintains that. Jen, you probably can answer that.
So there's,
So is there somebody
They
who's
know
going
this
to be?
quickly is all.
If it's not lit, we will take it down until it does have lighting.
yeah, just
And we
out of,
can put up
Just wanna make
temporary
sure
lighting
it's
until
proper.
something
Yeah.
permanent.
just out of respect to our military.
Okay.
Just
And
make sure.
Katie, I had a
Thanks,
quick
Jen.
question. You said on item number 4, planning commission work, you said M2 zone, and did you say I zone?
iZone.
Okay,
That is the developer's name is Lance Douglas on that parcel. It's off of Appleway.
thank you.
So the letter that I'm passing around, if you want to sign it, that'd be great. And we will share our appreciation to Greg Bacon, the contractor who donated it.
So Katie, going back to number 4 again as well with regards to the zoning discussions. I know our moratorium will be running out sometime in December. It sounds like more than likely we're going to be looking at discussing extending that because we probably won't have enough time to evaluate with the budget and everything. So at what point would it be appropriate to bring an extension vote back to the council?
It's scheduled in your advance agenda for December 21st, is that 14? No, 20th? Is that our last council meeting?
So when does the current one
The
run
first
out?
read would be on December 6th, but if we're not, let me look at this real quick here, make sure I'm saying this correctly.
Is that later than December 6th?
December 6th, it's scheduled for a first read.
But the expiration is like after the
Yes,
second.
it's correct. The expiration is the end of the year. We have it on 2 agendas before that, so you could vote to extend or not.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the last thing, so just a follow-up from the retreat that happened Sunday. Ann and I are listening to the recording, and we plan to have the minutes and the priorities in a, I will say, abbreviated fashion, ready for you to review on December 6th. And with that could be some potential budget adjustments, so we'll try to have those on December 6th as well. And it has to do with some of the priorities and funding of things that the council had requested. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Shane Brickner to see if he has any comments.
Yeah, I really want to commend our city council for our meeting on Sunday. You know, with our nation in the great divide right now, it was pretty remarkable to see our council in such a great, have such a great vision and direction for the city. I don't think I've ever seen our council work together so well in a meeting, to be honest. I was very impressed to see the ideas that came to the table. And it was, you know, rewarding to see where we're at in relation to where some of our country's at right now. We had some great conversations around a lot of different topics. I'll just highlight a couple. We did talk about business support and recruitment, what we can do as a city council and a city to help local businesses, both from a recruiting stage as well as a supportive stage. And we had some ideas that we might move forward with on that. We discussed transportation projects, some of those to include Liberty Lake shuttle services, potentially walking trails throughout the city to create pedestrian safety overall. Crosswalks, things to that effect. Bridging north-south Liberty Lake, connectivity through Harvard. And we also discussed Parks and Rec. We discussed master plans for the city, which we're going to have a separate meeting for, as you've heard, to decide what we envision for the city for the future with the police department, city hall, a community center potentially, and trying to work together to create a functional city to the best of our abilities. We also discussed some miscellaneous initiatives, underground utilities, public art funding, how we want to support better our public arts. There was some good discussion about that. Advocating for a code of ethics for our city council and mayor. Evaluating land use, and then citizen engagement. How can we better reach out to our citizens to get them involved more, to come to meetings, to how we can engage them from a standpoint of being out there more, to be an ear to the community. An example of that would be during movie nights in the park, where we might have a booth up so people can ask us questions and talk to us and meet us, kind of a meet your city elected officials. So those are just some of the highlights. Bob?
Thank you. I just had one comment. I just wanted to thank the city, Katie and Andrew, for taking care of my one request, and that was having North Country Vista Boulevard striped. And it's now striped all the way from Mission, or Boulder past Mission. And really appreciate it. It helps a lot to see at night. Thank you very much.
One of the things that came up at the workshop was Mayor Peterson made some suggestions that I really latched on to and give him credit for talking about, but I think that it needs just a little fine tuning by the council so that we can move it forward. He suggested that as we move forward in 2017, that we find a way to fund pedestrian crossing lights that we've been fortunate enough to have installed throughout some of the city. To be able to fund the purchase of several of those, to hold them in stock. And as a need is identified, Mayor, is that correct? That we'd be able to move forward in a timely fashion to get those installed instead of having to wait, place the order, wait for them to come in, and then installation. So if you could help us, or the staff could help us come to a price to have, say, 3 or 4 of those in stock, in ready to go, and see if we can work that into the 2017 budget. Would that be okay, Mayor? And I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
I just have one other question. I brought it up briefly at our meeting. A couple of years ago, I think we had an inventory of all the street lights in Liberty Lake, and that Avista was replacing the sodium vapor lights with LED lights. And I just wondered if we could update that inventory of the lights, and how many Avista is going to be responsible for, how many the city's going to be responsible for, and how many homeowners associations within Liberty Lake are going to be responsible for. And if we could get some idea as to what the cost is going to be and the impact that that's going to be from a budgetary perspective.
Yeah, Councilmember Moore, Vista does have, and I don't have all the details that Andrew has, but they do have funding for conversions then, and we're part of that conversion. It's a several-year project, but I will find out what's the schedule and what's the location.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I think another area of discussion that the city staff can start working on, there was discussion around pedestrian safety with our trails, which you and I discussed briefly. But from the citizen standpoint, the audience, you know, it's important for us to have a safe community. And as you walk through some of our neighborhoods where the trails are, they can be very dark, and we want to figure out a way to potentially light those areas. And so we discussed a pilot program And one of the discussions was on Country Vista, creating a pilot program to find an aesthetically pleasing and effective lighting system for our trails.
We're talking kind of like a low-level light,
Yeah.
you know, so as you have movement, or even if it's constant on or moving on, so that not the spotlights from the street lights.
Right.
Not a big
And
difference.
from a cost-effective perspective, you know, keeping that in consideration, maybe it's a solar powered type of thing, maybe not. I know that you had brought up potentially something that is similar to an pavilion park where it
The
lights up.
bollards.
Yeah, which is, you know, very aesthetically pleasing as well, but just getting a game plan in place for that.
Good to go?
Yep.
Consent agenda.
Mayor, move consent agenda, action items A1 and 2 to approve city council minutes for November 1st and approve November 15th vouchers in the amount of $362,575.38.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Further discussion? Not hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Mayor, move consent agenda, action item B, general business, to approve the 2017 annual support fee agreement with Bias and authorize Mayor Peterson to sign the agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Not hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Aye.
Yeah, there you go. Stanley, woke up. Thanks, Dan. You made the tiebreaker. The public hearing is on for City of Liberty Lake 2017 budget, and so it's 8:02. And so, without further ado, if anybody would like to make comments on our budget, or we should be spending our money, not spending our money, anything you might have heard tonight, anything you might have been thinking about. We're pretty open to suggestions. But if I don't see a big rush up there, I'll have to continue to move on and close our public hearing at 8:03. Resolution then.
City of Liberty Lake, Spokane County, Washington, resolution number 16-202B. A resolution of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending resolution 16202 relating to the appointment of a representative to the Spokane Transit Authority Board pursuant to City of Liberty Lake resolution number 02-40.
Motion.
Mayor, move
Second.
move the resolution. Thanks, Bob.
Trying to set the
You were
record
on
for
it.
the meeting.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I believe this is Annoyance Gordon Langford, the representative STA, is that correct?
That's correct.
Voluntary. Agreed. Spend this time on this.
Did we hear you already?
He's still here, so I guess he's
So far, so good.
He's good. So without any further ado, all in favor, raise your right hand. I count. You're not raising your right hand?
No, I'm gonna sit this one out.
He's voting against.
Abstaining.
Dan, are you for Odin?
Dan's not included.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Okay, there's 6-4 and Odin abstained. I don't blame him. Had I been the tie-breaking vote, I'd vote for it. Okay, introduction news, business items.
Okay, so it will be a longer meeting on December 6th than it will be tonight. So basically, we have the local business spotlight will be on Bella Cresta. We have presentations by Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce, Catherine Morgan. We have Bishop Jensen, who really has taken a strong leadership role in the Walk to Bethlehem. He's going to talk to you about the interfaith community coming together and wanting to do something very positive in Liberty Lake. We will also have a presentation by CH2M on the traffic study. So bring all your traffic questions about congestion and backups and all that, because they have gone through our entire model and are going to be able to answer a lot of the questions about what that traffic study tells us and some suggestions on projects that we need to pursue. We will also have the first read on the city budget. We will also have action on the moratorium the two moratoriums that we have in place, either to extend or not. Excuse me, the one moratorium, the M2, the other one doesn't need action at this time. And then the first read on the Code of Ethics. And just so you know, what we asked Catherine Morgan to speak on is how to support local businesses. So hopefully she'll bring some ideas and suggestions. I think, is there anything, oh, and then, I'm sorry, I forgot, adopting your council priorities. So that'll be on, that'll be a resolution.
We're going to have citizen comments because we have an executive session and we'll have to follow. So if anybody would like to make a comment, not anything for you from the district anymore. The other citizen would like to make a comment, we're going to go into executive session. If you don't make a comment now. Otherwise, you're free to move about the country because we come out of executive session. We're going to go.
8:09, yeah.
Thank you.
8:09.
Got it? For approximately
9:08.
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, hang on a sec.
What's the
Go ahead.
I started out my life in
Action.
Was that 5:08? Okay, all right, I'll climb out. You guys,
We can.
Bob, I think, was on over, so.
I switched them.
Oh, did you switch it? Oh, okay, you did switch it.
I don't know, yeah.
I'm sorry, I wanted to grab a report to that. So this is Jennifer Camp, who helps us with the Eagle Scout project.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.